welcome back to the class, everyone. For anyone who has ever stopped by one of my GAC live streams, you might have noticed that occasionally we intentionally or unintentionally mod shame some of our opponent's characters. Ew, tenacity? What is this, 2018? And in an effort to be fair, I've gone through my roster and found 5 characters that I could be modding a lot better, and how to do it. So the reason why they're currently modded the way they are, we'll kind of get into that as we go into things. And the reason why I haven't changed their mods is, frankly, I don't have the mod depth to be able to do so. And you'll see in here, we actually do have the mods laying around somewhere. They're just on really, really important characters who probably need them more. So up first on our list is going to be Adrad himself. And I understand what I was trying to do when I originally started modding this character. How essentially the entire Admiral Radis team works is you get it in there and your mission is to survive until you can use Hope, where you come in and you deal one large beam of damage that also inflicts healing immunity and protection disruption on the enemy team. If you're doing this right, that ability should pretty much level the entire enemy team, or at least get them very, very close to the point where you can kill the rest of them with exposed damage. One of the issues is, if you don't have Adrad modded enough for offense, even if you survive long enough to get there, sometimes this ultimate ability just does nothing at all. And I've experienced this many a time recently because the amount of Empire teams that are currently running around is actually quite a lot with the new Ahsoka content and whatnot. So you'll see going into our mods here, we have a defense set, we have a health primary, we have another health primary, we have a protection primary. And again, I understand that I was trying to survive, but in my experience, the amount of survivability here has been useless because by the time I actually get to our ultimate ability, the 11,000 damage we have in special damage just isn't quite enough. Now, if I were to go through my roster and look for a decent amount of offense to rip off of other characters like Cal Kestis, Maul, and Obi-Wan, which again, I'm not doing that because those characters are more important, but if I had enough mod depth, I would. We could actually get that 11,000 number up to 15,000 and deal a significant more amount of damage and actually be able to kill those DTMGs or those items that we're trying to go after. Especially when you start to consider that there are other outside factors that will continue to increase this damage if we had it lifted up, like his unique buff as well as offense up, which will have even more offense if our base amount was raised. So that is the first character that if I could change them, I would, and I am specifically looking out for those offensive mods to put on them to get that team to the next level. Next up is going to be Darth Revan, and this one I feel a little bit better about my mistakes because in my defense, this is mostly how he was modded for Darth Revan leadership back in the day. The team has since changed with Darth Malgus in a variety of ways, to the point right now, mine really should be aimed more at health because Darth Revan's main role right now isn't necessarily dealing damage, it's surviving so that he can continue to heal the team by spreading debuffs because that's how Malgus's team works. And like we focused entirely on speed, so much to the point that we have a broken set on him. That is correct to do in some cases. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to do in general, but right now that's not really getting me very far with Darth Revan. In addition to that, I have a crit damage triangle on him, which really doesn't go much of anywhere when you remember that he is a special damage dealer and crit chance on a special damage dealer is pretty much in the ground. Not to mention he also has a potency primer, which isn't as important anymore because the one debuff that isn't irresistible, or I guess two that he has, is buff immunity and shock. And with Darth Malgus on the team, he actually has a way to get shock on every single opponent. So it ends up being a little bit of a waste, especially when you start to consider how much more health I could have if I had a true health modding on him. Even still with the speed set, I'm not saying necessarily drag his speed down, but I could have significantly more health, I could have more speed at the cost of those other stats that aren't really doing all that much for me in the current setup. And one of the other reasons why I would really like to have health on him is because it synergizes so well with his unique villain, where it says when Darth Revan's health falls below 50%, it is equalized with the other healthiest ally. The reason why this is important is because if the enemy is dealing enough damage to just completely zero out Darth Revan's health and you don't fall in that small threshold, he just dies. And then you're out without Darth Revan and it's a lot easier to kill the enemy team. The more health you have, the more likely your enemy hit is actually going to land between that 49% and 1% health, meaning that he's going to be a lot harder to kill and it's just going to be annoying for you to have to take down the team, whether you're trying to beat it on defense or you're actually using the team yourself on offense against something else. So overall, more health would just get us a lot further than our current build, which is kind of like a potency, crit damage, offset mess. Next up is going to be BT1, and this one actually makes me really sad because I actually just took the crit chance mods off of BT1 to put them on a better character. And while I stand by the fact that Padawan Obi-Wan now has a really high crit chance, BT1 doesn't, and that's less than ideal, especially when you consider how much crit damage boost he's getting throughout his kit. Not only should you put in a crit damage triangle on him like we ourselves have, but in addition to that, his unique, 000's unique, and Afra's ability all give him a way to increase his critical damage. So when you don't have high enough crit chance to be consistently critting every single time, especially in the face of crit avoidance, you're just going to have a worse time than you should have. And there are ways around this because his offense is really good and defense penetration is also fun in some other ways. But again, from an optimal perspective, we should not have his critical chance sitting at 86%, leaving those 15% times or more with critical avoidance off the table. Especially when you consider I can actually take his exact kind of mod setup and put on, just better mods. Not only increase that critical chance up to basically 100%, but also get his offense, his speed, and his critical damage higher overall. So if I could, and I will be, on the lookout for better critical chance mods with critical chance secondaries, as well as offense mods with critical chance secondaries as well. Trying to get as close as I can to that 100% mark, again, just in case the enemies have some type of critical avoidance or critical chance down, which we actually ran into recently trying to clean up a Leia. But at any rate, speaking of Leia, different Leia, but Boosh. And our Boosh is currently modded for offense right now. And I understand what I was doing when I first started to mod her. I was like, oh, she's the main attacker for the team. She should be doing the most damage. In a way, she is. But at the same time, it's not actually through her own damage itself. It is from the fact that she is dealing a significant amount of damage from thermal detonators. Thermal detonators, as you probably know, is not based off of the user's damage, but is actually based off of the enemy's overall health, actually, and crit damage. So by increasing Boosh's overall offense, we're not really getting as far ahead as we could. What we really want to do is have an incredibly fast speed set on her. That way she can be making the rounds as much as possible, applying more thermal detonators so you can not only do more damage, but also get closer and closer to Jabba's ult faster and faster. So again, she's sitting at 334 speed, which is actually really fast for an offense set, and that's good and great and all, but if we just simply had a speed set on her, we would actually be able to get her all the way up to 371. And you might be thinking, well, 40 speed, actually, no, that is a lot. But at any rate, 330 versus 370 is also a really big deal when you consider the fact that the debuff that she is putting out on her enemies, where she is going to get additional effects, that is going to eventually go away on the enemy. So if you're able to take more turns in the beginning, spraying around more thermals, you're going to get to benefit from those debuffs even more, or rather, it's not a debuff, it's a status effect. But at any rate, going first, having more turns, and taking advantage of that stuff before the enemies are able to drop it off is going to be advantageous, not only for Boosh, but also for Jabba himself and the team that she's under. And last but not least is going to be Traya needing more defense. And I know we've talked a lot about the words Traya and defense at the same time, due to our streams, her being on defense. But my goodness, Calvin, what in the world were you doing with these mods? Like, what the actual heck here? We've got, like, crit chance mods with, I mean, the critical avoidance is actually okay. And I guess the health is fine, too. But Trey is actually one of those characters out there who is not the very best team in the world, like a Galactic Legend or Jar Jar Binks, but she sits right below it, meaning she's at a caliber of teams that doesn't have a way to readily avoid defense, say like Jedi Master Luke by calling his damage out of turn, or from Rey using her big hit. Meaning that if we can get proper defense sets on her, not defense primaries, because those values aren't all that good, but defense sets on her, we can actually mitigate the damage that she's taking significantly more than having crit chance. And the health is okay. I'm not totally against it, especially as far as the overall primary go. So if we look at putting this defense sets on her, we can keep her health relatively the same, which we still kind of want high because her bonus protection is based off of that. But we could raise her overall armor by 15% if we had her properly modded with defense. And I know a lot of people out there might be thinking, Calvin, this is really kind of dumb. Why are you modding her for or why are you wanting to mod her for defense over health when all of her bonus protection is based off of max health? Well, as long as your opponent doesn't have a way to completely cut out your defense with something like true damage, you're actually much better off from a survivability standpoint by mitigating the damage that is coming in against that bonus protection, then you aren't increasing the bonus protection. It's just a pretty simple math equation that, again, as long as they aren't completely ignoring it, you're actually getting out farther ahead just with how high the defensive set values are. Now, I will say for some people out there, and this is not my case, as you can see my Treya is Relic 5, but if you do have a Treya team where everyone is decked out with relics at like Relic 7, Relic 8, and you have Talon modded for offense, you probably want offense on Treya, because at that point, what you're going to do by leaving this team on defense, which you should, well, I think you should, you are going to tempt people to try to solo with Galactic Legends such as SLKR and C. The issue with trying to solo Relic 8 Treya teams with C and SLKR is if the Treya team is modded for offense, the Galactic Legend dies. They just get cut through immediately. The enemy team can't build up their ultimate quickly, and you just kill them based off of basics and specials because the team has so much raw offense and is able to do so much. Again, that is in GAC, assuming the Treya and Savage Omicrons. So overall, these are the 5 characters that I really wish I was modding better, with more offense on Adrad, more health on Darth Revan, more crit chance on BT1, more speed on Boosh, and more defense on Treya. So let me know in the comments, what characters do you have out there that you really like, that you know you should mod better, but just haven't had either the time or the mod depth to be able to do so. But until the next time, thanks for watching, and as always, stay awesome.